another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now. Today we have a phenomenal guest with us, Trina Hill. She is a VP of Technology at a technology company. I will tell you that if you are a woman, today's episode, you want to grab a cup of coffee, your tea, your water, whatever you like to drink, and let's sit down and have a real conversation. Because today we're going to talk about the things all of us suffer from, being a superwoman. And what is the impact of being a superwoman today, and what does it really mean? So welcome, Trina. I'm glad you are here today, and thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to hearing a lot about your story. So to begin with, what does being a superwoman really mean to you?
Well, first, thank you, Vicki, for having me. I love that question. What does it mean to be a superwoman? You know, and I know, being a Black woman, oftentimes growing up, our mothers did not have help, right? They cooked, they cleaned, they worked, they served in their communities. When someone was sick, they took care of them, oftentimes not even sending, my mother never sent my grandparents to a nursing home. They cared for them. Right? And so growing up, what I saw was they did everything. So that was my definition growing up as being a superwoman. But the key was my mother had a 9-to-5. When she left work, she left work. Right? That's not our experience anymore. I am a woman in technology. I have a little wonderful thing called a cell phone that goes with me everywhere. Right? There is no 9-to-5 day. And so as I look at being a superwoman right now, I have to look at, do I cook my own food all the time? Do I clean my own house all the time? When my sister friend says she needs help, do I go to help her, or do I send someone to help her? Because I still have to work. I'm still a mother. And so this notion of being this superwoman, it's changed because, again, mom did all these things. She had a 9-to-5. She had a complete start and finish of her day for work. My day doesn't start. I'm 24/7 at my job. I also have to continue to be there for my husband and my son. And so one of the things I think as we think about this notion of superwoman, we have to say we're not going to do that anymore because it's not real. And we as Black women have to figure out, where can we outsource, right? So do I necessarily have to clean my own house? No. I make enough money, I can outsource that. Do I necessarily have to cook my own food? Not necessarily. I could possibly outsource that. When my girlfriend says, hey, I really need your help, I have to discern if I should be the one that's going versus sending someone to go. Because being superwoman will kill you if you let it. You can't be everything to everyone all the time, because then you lose yourself in the process. And that's just not what we were created for. God did not create us to carry everything. He created us to carry what he put on us, not what everybody else put on us. And also learning to say no. We always want to jump in and do things, but we have to stop and discern, did God tell you to go do that? Is it your assignment, or is it someone else's? Can you delegate, or could you just say no? Because every time we jump in and fix things, we rob people of the opportunity for them to grow up and for them to learn. And so this whole notion of superwoman, we've got to put that to the side in order to continue to save our mental health, because it is killing a lot of us. A lot of Black women are stressed out, and I'll say women in general, especially during these times. We are stressed out, we are angry, we are irritated because our tanks are empty. We are pouring out to too many people, and we're doing too many things when we really need to focus on what is it that God is calling us to do? What is our purpose? What is our assignment?
So I want to ask you a couple of questions regarding that, because you bring up a lot of valid points, but a lot of times I hear when we talk about outsourcing, people are saying, I can't afford it. I can't afford to outsource. So what do we say to help those that may not be in that financial position, but find themselves still in a position of giving and taking care of and doing for others? How do we manage that?
Yeah, great question. So there are a couple of things. So number one, barter, because I haven't always been a vice president in a technology company, right? Sometimes it's a girlfriend in the past would cook a larger meal. She would send some meals over to my house, and then the days I cooked large meals, I would do the same thing. We can barter and we can help each other, right? So that's one piece. Another thing is going back to, what do you absolutely have to get done? Growing up in my house, my mother, I'm pretty sure she had OCD. even though that's not what everything had to be perfect. Sometimes we're operating from that space of having to get an A in everything. Sometimes you don't need to get an A in everything. It is okay to leave dishes in your sink sometimes so that you can get a moment of quiet and solace, or to just be able to sit down with your children and watch television. The dishes will be fine the next day if you take care of them. So sometimes it's not even about bartering or outsourcing. Sometimes we also have to change the systems in the way that we operate. We can't continue to walk in this desire to be perfect everywhere all the time. It's okay if you don't make your bed right when you get out of it. Now, in my house, we do it out of discipline, but if you miss a day just because you need to take a minute or you need a break, it's okay. The world is not going to stop turning just because you didn't make up your bed.
So I think it's really, you put a very valid point out there. It's really about priorities and understanding what's important at the time we do it. Well, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk to Trina a little bit more about her specific situation and what she's doing as she is being the superwoman around all of her areas of responsibility, because she manages them very well. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
Welcome back. So let's get back to what we were learning so much about. And I hope you're drinking that cup of coffee or drinking that water or sitting back and listening. Please take some notes, because we are here hearing some great information from Trina Hill about how do we really do this superwoman thing. So Trina, you're a mother, you're a wife, you are a vice president in a technology organization 24/7. You have a mother that you take care of. You have a father that you take care of. Talk to me about prioritization and how do you manage through all of those different perspectives in terms of making sure that you are attending to the things that are most important?
That is a great question. And I will tell you, sometimes it's balanced and sometimes it's not, right? But going back to your question around prioritization, it really is looking at day by day, where am I? We are in the midst of COVID, right? And so was home with my son, trying to help him adjust to going home. That was an adjustment. So I had to focus on him because that was a change. My husband is also an essential worker. So us reevaluating what are we doing in our house that we now need to do differently, because he's coming into the house after being in the place that he works all day and making sure that we're staying safe. So what I had to do in that situation is really, again, go back to the system. How is the house working before COVID? What changes do we need to make today, right? So my son, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about a plan. Let's put a strategy together on how you're going to do your work. And let's make sure you and I are in agreement, because I'm there with him the majority of the time. Honey, when you come in the house, here's the place that you need to get undressed. And you need to go straight to the shower. There's no kissing like we would normally do, right? But it's really saying, how do we change? Let's take a pause, assess where we were, and then let's assess what do we need to do differently in this house. So after we got that going, I get a phone call one Sunday. My mother falls. She breaks her foot. She has to have major surgery. I had a choice. I am the oldest, and my sister does not live in the state. And so we said, okay, do we put you in a nursing home, or do I have you come live here? We had her come live here. But then as a family, we still had to assess what systems do we need in place to now take care of her. Because again, I'm still a wife, I'm still a mother, I'm still working. And so that is the way that I've been able to cope through everything. Take a step back and look at how was things working before, and what changes do we as a family, not Trina, because it's a team sport, do we all need to agree to? And everybody has their own position that they have to play, because you can't do everything alone, right?
Now let's follow up on that because you said team sport. So how do you determine what roles or whom's and how you're going to work through that as a team sport? Because it is supposed to be all inclusive, but a lot of times we find ourselves as the only. We're the ones, it's the only. Nobody else is there to help. We got to do it by ourselves, and we're trying to manage all that. Talk to me a little bit about how did you get to a team sport environment to begin with? And if you weren't there, how did you change to get there?
Oh, yes. Ooh, it's been a journey. So my husband and I have been married for 20 years. And as you can tell, I'm type A and very organized. One of the things during this journey in our marriage is I realized I was so busy going to, again, fix it, because that's what I was taught, that I did not allow him to step up and lead in certain areas because I was jumping ahead of him. I was out of alignment. And being out of alignment then caused stress and, irritation and those things that kind of comes with that because I'm overwhelmed and I'm doing too much. And so one of the things that I've learned to do is say, okay, here are the things I'm really good at. These are the things that he's really good at. And then he owns that. He runs with it. And it doesn't matter if it looks like I want it to look, as long as it gets done. Right? It doesn't have to be the way that I need it to be. And it's also a way to help him also, right, feel more like a man, right? A lot of times we're jumping ahead of them and we shouldn't be. They know what to do, but we don't give them space to do it. So that's one piece. As it relates to my son, the one key thing that I got, I will say over the last 6 months, is we never show weakness. My mother, I don't recall my mother ever really crying in front of me unless there was a death in the family. We have this persona of being the strong Black woman. And what we don't understand is that we get frustrated when people don't jump in to help us because they think we have it because we're strong Black women. We have to show up as being women, not super women. And so you know what? One day I was having a moment, I think it was right after George Floyd had passed, and it was this flood of emotions, and I had to get on a conference call with my face pretty and do my meetings as if nothing was going on. And after my meeting, I started crying. He so happened to walk into my office, and I just sat in that emotion. Normally, I would pull it together, right, or tell him, give me a minute. But I allow him to see his mother hurting so that he could understand that I'm human. I'm not super. I'm not perfect. And so now when I ask for help, or even he notices that I need help because I am more transparent with my emotions, it's easier for it to be a team sport. But I had to learn to move myself out of the way, right? And really surrender and say, you know what, there's power in people helping me. I don't have to carry this all. I don't have to be superwoman because I'm killing myself if I am. And I'm also robbing the people that love me and the opportunity to help me.
What was the key that helped you to realize that?
That's a very good question. I think it was really quite, my son came home, it was right before COVID, and I think it stuck in my mind. And I said to him, I was getting the groceries out of the car because I cook every day, or at least every week. And I said to him, he was like, why do you have an attitude? I have a teenager. And I was like, because I've done da-da-da-da-da. So I listed out all the things I had done today. And he said, but I don't understand why you're tired. Like, I don't understand why you're upset. And what I realized at that moment is, again, he didn't see all these things that I was doing because I did them so effortlessly. So then I stopped being perfect at everything and making sure everything was in order for him. So I started to let things fail. I didn't jump in to fix things because what I realized is wasn't seeing his mother as being a human being. What he was seeing his mother as being a superwoman. And that's why he didn't understand why I was tired, because he had no concept of what I had been going through or even all the things that I was doing in the household. So he's the one that really taught me. He probably regrets it now, but he's the one that taught me that.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Trina about how she's been dealing with COVID-19 and some of the challenges and the social community issues. And then we'll ask some questions from our audience. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds. while providing hope and inspiration.
When we think about hidden stories healed now, one of the things that is very obvious is that all of us have a journey. Everybody has challenges, trials, and tribulations. Whatever it is that you are experiencing, whatever challenge that may be, whatever hardship that you've gone through, those things that we keep in the closet that we never talk about, those hidden things keep us from being healed. We need to talk about them, even if it's with a trusted confidant. You need to deal with them, because what happens is that they stay with you anyway. It can affect your ability to move forward in any capacity in life. It can have impacts on your health. So one of the things that I always say, let the stories go. Let the emotions out. Let the conversations begin so that you can become healed, so that you can move forward. All you really want is that freedom, the freedom of not holding it back anymore, the freedom of not feeling it in the pit of your stomach, the freedom of not saying that, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. See, that's why we keep things in the closet. We either are embarrassed, we don't want anybody to know, it makes us feel bad, and no one wants to hurt. No one wants to be in pain. So talk about it. Find that thought partner, that confidant, that therapist, that person that allows you to be you and accepts you for who you are. So heal yourself by letting the things out. Welcome back. So we're here talking with Trina about that thing called being a superwoman. So before we left for break, you were talking about how your son taught you, and the things that you learned. And I think that's really important that we recognize that the younger generation can teach us, and that we can learn a lot from them. But I want to talk a moment about the impact of COVID-19 and being a superwoman, with the restrictions that are there, the challenges that are there. How are you handling that?
It's day by day. I've learned to give myself grace, and I take it day by day. And again, it looks different depending on which seat I'm occupying at any given time. So as vice president of a large team, that means I show up, I support. I've done a lot of high touch during this time. People are really struggling, dealing with their jobs, their children, aging parents, and some of them, again, just the anxiety of stress of dealing with COVID. So I've made sure that I've made myself available. I also use my tools that are available at my company. So I had a counselor come in and talk to my team about stress strategies. And so I've found that has been very helpful, as well as creating, we have family meetings every week where we'll have fun topic or discussion, or we'll dance, we'll play games or whatever. But that's a different time for us to get together and just be with each other and relax. As a wife, date nights are a little interesting. They are cheaper, but I've had to be more intentional about making sure that my husband and I are staying connected, because it's easy to get so caught up. He's working, I'm working, and we're moving, and that we are losing that connection that we need to keep. As it relates to my son, look, we're having debates about whether friends are going to come over, whether he can go back to school next semester. Right now he's home, and really spending some time helping him process through the right decision. We are going to make the decision for him, but we need him to learn to be a part of the decision, because he's a teenager and we want him to start thinking ahead. And so that's been interesting. And the parents, not being able to touch, my father. So when I go see him, I do check on him every, couple months, but I can't touch him. We have to sanitize everything. That has been hard, because most of our seniors are also struggling mentally. They miss physical touch and interaction. Yes, they do. So I've just had to adjust and to do whatever I needed to do. On the girlfriend front, though, so let me tell you some tips on the girlfriend front.
Okay.
So me and my girlfriends, we do get together once a month, but we're very creative. So we all have SUVs. We go to the Target's parking lot. We go grab a snack, and we sit in the back of our cars and we talk. Right? We are social distanced, right? But it's a time for us to get together and just be girlfriends. So we've had to be very creative in making sure that we are keeping our connection as well. Because sometimes, I love my husband, I love my son, I love my mama, but there's nothing like a good girlfriend. There's nothing like a girlfriend because you can show up and there's nothing required.
Well, one of the last questions I want to ask you before we turn it over to the audience is this social injustice has added another layer of complexity. And you talk about being a Black woman and being a superwoman. How do we handle, how do you deal, what do we say, what are the things that you're finding in terms of this social injustice?
That is a very deep topic right now. I think the blessing of the time that we're in is that we didn't all go through this by ourselves because our white counterparts are at home watching television and experiencing what we experience really every day. George Floyd was not the first Black man that was killed by the police.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so that really has been really a blessing for us. I think it's an opportunity for us to talk about our truth and be honest and to sit in it. But I also think it's okay for us to say, I don't want to talk about it right now. It's okay for you to, because you may not be emotionally there to have the conversation. And sometimes it's okay for you to say, I don't want to hold, I call it holding your hand for my healing, where someone comes to you and says, well, Trina, what can we do to fix it? Well, if Black people could fix it, we would have fixed it. Right? And so I think what we have to do is really discern, again, when do we want to share our story versus when do we not, and be okay with it. And I also think it's an opportunity, this time to me though, is an opportunity to start having honest conversations and assess also where you're working. If your company or your leaders are not supporting you as you're going through this, you need to ask, are you in the right place? And if they're not, then you may need to look for another job or another opportunity.
Well, it's interesting because I think we're going through our own Black post-traumatic syndrome right now. And I think that impact is showing up in a lot of different ways. So now we're going to take an opportunity to get some questions from the audience.
Thank you, Trina, for the information you've been sharing. I have a question. I too have been ambitious in my career and have taken some higher leadership positions. In addition to being married for 19 years, I have 3 daughters at home, all teenagers. It's a lot. But outside of my professional accomplishments, I still find myself really focused on a lot of the traditional things that have historically measured women. How clean the house is, how are you cooking, how are you feeding your family? And those things are very tiring, particularly with the amount of responsibility that I have in my professional life. And so how did you make the determination and become okay with giving away or allowing help to come in and help for some of those home things? Because it was just ingrained in me that those were measures of womanhood. And they are important to me, and I want them to be important to my daughters, but I also feel very restrained by them, and it's very stressful.
That's a great question. So number one, let me just say this. I have 2 males in the house, and what I learned very early on with our son as he was growing up, the things that women care about, men really don't care about, right? And so, my mother had 2 girls. So she was training us up really to be wives. That's what she didn't train me up necessarily to be an executive in tech. She trained me up to be a wife based off of her definition of what a good wife was. A good wife was cooking, was cleaning, was caring for the children, because that was her generation. Well, that's not my definition because my experience is different. And so I had to realize either I was going to meet her expectations, because they were really her expectations of me, not my husband's, not my child's, and drive myself crazy over stupid stuff, or I was gonna have peace and not be burdened. And I saw my aunts and my cousins, these women killing themselves, trying to take care of everybody, and they never took care of themselves. And that's not what I want. Like, I don't want to have a nervous breakdown in my 30s, right? And this was earlier. I didn't want to have a nervous breakdown. I didn't want to have a failed marriage. I didn't want to have health issues. And so I had to say, you know what is really important in my house? What's important in my house is that my husband feels respected and loved. My house is clean, but is he gonna care that we have dishes in the sink versus sitting next to him and watching a movie on a Saturday? He cares more about quality time. Does my son really care if his mother puts creases in his blue jeans versus his mother being fully present when he's had a bad day when he came from school and someone has said something to him and he's trying to figure out how to process it? You get to define what good looks like in your house. You get to define that. I think we're too hard on ourselves, and we need to learn to be kind to ourselves. And we got to get out of this notion that we have to have A+ everywhere. Other people don't feel that way. They don't. So you have to get to a point that you figure out, what does good look like in your house? Not in everybody else's, not in your mama's house, not in your auntie's house, not in your grandmama's house. And also making sure that, again, going back to being a good wife and a mother, what does that look like in your family in this time? Right. And that's gonna change as your seasons change. As you change, your husband, your children are gonna leave the house. What that looks like is just gonna look different. So you get to define it.
And, I'd love to leave you with a thought. And this is something that I tell people that, I coach all the time. There's one bank account that only gives, that only takes away and does not give you a deposit.
It's time.
And it's called time.
Yep.
So think about the time that you're taking out of your life to do things that really may not add any value versus taking that time to do something you want to. Because when you're in that last breath, you can't go back and do what you wanted to do that you gave up.
That's right.
So remember, the value of time is yours, which makes the choice yours. Thank you so much for joining us on Hidden Stories, Healed Now. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And will you please join me in thanking our guests?
Thank you. Thank you.